Hey, what's up, my Radical Squad? My name is DelmarshaeWalker. Welcome back to my channel, and I hope everyone is having a great day today. What I want to talk about is in the Bible, we're told by God that we need to separate ourselves from this world. Don't be like this world, be separate from the world, even though we're living in the world. So we're physically in this world, but we're not supposed to allow it to get into us. We're not supposed to allow it to penetrate us. And also in the Bible, it teaches, for us to teach our kids the right way to go. And if we do so, they would never part. We're supposed to be following God and turning away from sin. With that, I want to show you a video, and then I'm going to kind of get back to what I'm talking about now. My mother and father grew up in a society that was separate but equal. My mother told me the story of how when she went downtown and she seen a white water fountain and a black water fountain, she looked around and she drank water out the white water fountain because she thought the water tasted better, only to realize that both water tasted the same. Because she didn't, as a little girl, she didn't understand that it was coming out of the same faucet, but just splitting in two different directions. But she thought their water tastes better because they didn't want black people to have it. I remember I only knew one of my grandparents, and that's my grandmother on my father's side. I remember things that she used to tell me about growing up and stuff like that. Even with me, I went to school, my middle school was Robbie Lee, where there was Robbie Lee was, the general who wanted to keep slavery, and how I was bused to school and how that was an all-white school until the black people started going there. So in that video, you see me speaking about my mom and how when she was a little girl, she thought drinking out of the white water fountain, because they was always told you can't, anytime you see a sign that says white only, you can't go there. So she grew up thinking that whatever they had was better. So when she snuck and drank out of that water fountain, she thought the water was going to taste different than hers, was going to taste better than her, the ones that she was drinking, was going to be cooler, whatever she thought it was going to be. But then she was disappointed because it was just like the water that she was already drinking. And I feel that's how we are as Christians. God tells us to be separate. And we're looking at the world thinking that what the world has to offer us, what's going on in the world, we think is better. And so instead of staying away from it, which is actually protecting us, we go and run into it. And that's the same thing I think happened with the civil rights movement. When we went to school, they had like black only schools that they went to because they were separate. And so the schools they went to, they had teachers that nurtured the students based on their experience, based on the world they knew they was going to have to send those kids out to. So they mothered them and fathered them and taught them in the way that once they was able to get into these other schools, they didn't nurture them the same way. They didn't teach them the same way. They didn't have that community that they initially had when it was just blacks only and whites only. And I'm not saying this in a racial type of way. I'm just saying it based on facts, based on information that is out there, based on the truth. And so, and like I said, because I am a Christian, I'm not blind. So yes, I do see black and white, but at the same time, my Christianity is first and foremost. And so there was a protection by being in the community. There was a protection by that they wasn't going to get once they was able to leave the community. So I feel that in a way, desegregation was good because it allowed people to go wherever they wanted to without being harassed. Like, once we kind of got past that part, without them being harassed or, oh, do you know this white only, this only, you can't come here, you can't go there. So that's the only good thing I see that happened with desegregation. But everything else I think that came with desegregation, it wasn't good. The same way that God was saying that his people should not be in the world, I feel it's the same way, because you see what they're doing in schools now. They're indoctrinating these kids. They're not teaching these kids, they're not educating these kids, they're not teaching these kids to survive in this world that we have. And if you, unless you have blinders on, or you're walking around with rose-colored glasses, you see exactly what type of world we have. And that's the world that, unless we, in our generation, the generation that's below me, unless we actually open our eyes and make changes, this is the world that our kids are going to have to inherit, and not only inherit, but be able to navigate through, because you see that they're putting a lot of laws in place. They're putting a lot of things in place that's not helping anyone's kids. It's actually hindering them. It's not even helping us as an adults who have more knowledge, understanding, and more common sense than our kids have. We're running into roadblocks with certain things we can say or cannot say. So we have to get that mentality that God wanted us to have in the first place, that we separate ourselves from this world, because this world is evil. As long as we stay in this world, it's like I said in another video, we were free from Sodom and Gomorrah, but we're still holding on to it. We're still wanting to go back to it. We're still thinking that Sodom and Gomorrah is better than what God has to offer, was, going towards the future, moving towards the future, moving towards the life that He wants us to have. And so once we're willing to let go of society's norm as far as, oh, you have to do this, or you have to be this, or you have to be in the world, and you have to, no, we don't. Because like when my mom was going to high school, one of the songs they taught her was the Black National Anthem. When I ended up, because my middle school was a segregated middle school, and then it got integrated. And so when I went to my high school, it was like in my neighborhood, an all-black high school. And so they taught me that same song, the Black National Anthem. And so that is something, like, you might say, oh, it's no big deal, but it's cultural. There's certain culture that we had when we was in our own community, but once we left those communities, it's a lot of things we lost. I'm not saying you can't be integrated, you can't be a part of, but if you're losing who you are in order to become something that you're not, something that they will never accept you as, or you have to basically sell your soul to become, you're losing who you are, and you're not going to teach your kids that way. And like I said, it's no different than what's taught in the Bible. Teach your kids the way they should go, and they will never part from it. So if I had a child right now and I was in a position to homeschool my child, that's exactly what I would do. I would choose homeschooling my child rather than sending them into these public schools that's not teaching the kids anything. So you're in a position to make sure your child is learning how to think for themselves, learning how to navigate this world. If they had to go out in this world by themselves, if y'all got separated, will they panic, or will they be calm enough to know what they need to do to try to get in contact with you, or try to go towards the right person who's going to help them, instead of sitting there looking scared, looking like a victim, and somebody else looking at them, a predator looking at them as a prey. Oh, I can go up to them, and they're going to easily walk away. So it's like, you gotta, unfortunately, this is the time that we live in. We have to have kids that are educated enough on all levels, so they can be independent to the point that they're not afraid, and they also understand that the information that you're giving them, that's why it's important to not, lie to your kids, or play games with your kids, or try to act like you're your kid's best friend. It's being a parent to your child, as far as making sure they understand that they can trust what you say, and you're going to be honest with them, and then they're in a position where they feel comfortable asking you certain questions, because they might have been somewhere and heard something without you just going off on them. They have to feel comfortable enough to come to you and, hey, someone said this to me. Hey, someone told me this. Oh, will I get in trouble if I refuse to participate in this, this or that in school? Hey, someone tried to touch me. They have to be okay and feel safe telling you those things, and have to understand that, no, it's not okay for you to keep secrets from me. I don't care who told you that. That's never okay for you to keep secrets from me. And if someone tell you this is a secret between me and you have to come tell me so I can understand who's talking to you and why they want you to keep this information secret. That's how we're gonna keep the kids safe on one level. And like I said, the other level, because they're not stopping. They're not gonna stop. They're not gonna change. So the only way you can truly protect your kids is to separate them from that. Think of it this way: if you had a neighbor that stayed down the street, and every time your kid went over to play at that neighbor house, they came back crying. They came back upset. So you decide, okay, let me go down there and speak to the neighbor and see what's going on. So you go down there. You see you can't reason with the kids. You can't reason with the parents. There's nobody in that house that has enough sense to say, okay, yeah, I see what's going on. I'll put a stop to it. So as a parent, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue to send your kids down there? Then while you're at home, you're worried about, is my child okay? I wonder if they're messing with them. Let me send a text. Let me do this. Then every day your child coming home crying. What will you do at that point? Will you continue to send them, or will you say, look, they're who they are. They're not going to change. So the best thing for me to do, so I can have peace of mind as a parent, and the best thing that I can do for you so you can have peace of mind as a child, you can't go down there anymore. You can't play with them anymore. They can no longer be your friend, and no, they cannot come to our house either. That's how we have to be, because the world is not changing. The world is not going to change. This is the same world that has been here for years after years after years. That's why in another video I did, I say I'm over it. I won't be marching for anything. I won't be doing all that because it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make sense. So the only way you're going to see progress is first, it's like a cancer. First you got to cut the cancer out, then you work on the healing process. So it's like anything that's negative, anything that's not of God, you have to cut it out. You have to separate yourself from it in order to move forward, in order to thrive, in order to have a better life.